Hello, everyone, and welcome to Stronger Together, a CW Supergirl fan podcast. My name's Snowy.
And I'm Nick.
Today we are going to talk about episodes 4 and 5. Episode 4 is entitled How Does She Do It? In this episode, Kara must protect National City from a series of bombings and babysit Kat's son while James is visited by Lucy Lane. In episode 5 is entitled Livewire. In this episode, Kara's foster mother visits for Thanksgiving, while an accident transforms a volatile Catco employee into Livewire.
What I was doing research for this episode, because I personally forgot about it because first of all, I am not in the USA. So when these two episodes were about to air, there was the Paris terrorist attacks.
Mm-hmm.
So they changed the orders of these two episodes. They aired Livewire first, and then they air How Does She Do It?
Yeah.
Because of the attacks. And apparently, they also had to do it in a special that the UK was doing sometime later on March of 2016, when something similar also happened. So these two episodes have been changed all around for various different broadcasts. But in the home edition and the DVD and the streaming, the order is how they plan it. How Does She Do It first, and then Livewire.
In some of the streaming platforms, they still have these two out of order, actually.
Yeah,
I think it depends.
interesting. I actually forgot how packed the How Does She Do It episode was. When we decided to do these two episodes back to back, I thought that we will spend more time with Livewire. But actually, I think How Does She Do It has more stuff than Livewire.
Yeah, I think I had a similar sort of thought process because, I mean, Livewire's such, I think, a really cool character in the Supergirl show, and she does come back.
Indeed.
And I didn't forget the How Does She Do It episode just because I'm an unabashed lover of season 1. But I did forget how really big this episode feels. I think there is a lot going on. I think they were doing some very big, important things uh, for establishing so many different things. Some of which doesn't continue because the show had so many changes after season 1 and network changes and things like that. But I think one thing that stood out to me that was really important, I think this episode does do, is I think it really is the first really deep in moment case of us really seeing the showing of Kara's compassion as Supergirl. And I mean, we know she is like that way as a person, but I think this episode is a really good early showcase for this. In terms of, because it's always like show don't tell. And I think
Yeah.
this episode did do a really good job of showing us her very deep compassion.
Yeah, that is the reason why I love season one, even though I don't rewatch it as much as the rest of the show. But this is the season that is most consistent in Kara's personality and arc, right?
Mhm,
Like I
mhm.
remember you saying about the previous episodes, episode 3 reaction, how the first instinct of Kara was actually trying to help Reaction instead of fighting him. And this is
Yes.
literally a continuation of that ideal that Kara has when she gets to the enemy of this episode, quote unquote. But I guess we should recap a little bit.
Mhm.
Episode 4 is basically Max Lord testing Supergirl's powers. He sends a drone for her. He literally bombs one building of his to like check Supergirl's strengths, and then plants a bomb in his building when he is in there to kind of divert attention, I suppose. And also the plan of the train, the bullet train that they have. It is different bombs, different places. Sometimes two places at the same time just to study Supergirl in his mind, right? Which
Mhm.
is fine for the character because, like we said earlier in this podcast, Max Lord in this show is basically a Lex Luthor insert. He's sort of like Lex Luthor, to the point that the fact that he's doing this test is a Easter egg of the Clark and Lois show from
Yes,
the
it
early
is. Yep.
2000s.
Mm-hmm.
It is an Easter egg because Lex in that show did exactly the same, to the point that the scene at the end of the episode when Kara confronts Max because she figured it out is basically the same exact scene that they had in the Clark and Lois show, The New Adventures of Superman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is.
But what I did like about that arc was the fact that Kara figured it out. That Kara was like, she confronted the bomber and she realized this is not a lone bomber or a crazy guy. She's like, there is something else going on. And she figured out, she didn't tell Alex. Like,
Yep.
did say that she had like a suspicion that something else was going on.
Mm-hmm.
But she didn't, it wasn't like someone else telling her that it was Max. She figured it out on her own.
And I love
So
that. I love it so much.
yeah, because she's a smart cookie,
Mm-hmm.
and in the show progressively kind of forgets that she is.
God
But
does it forget.
in season one, is very persistent that she is a smart person. She
Mm-hmm.
is very very smart, even if she didn't like cultivate her scientific brain like she
Well,
did on Krypton. But she is still an intelligent person.
well, and I think that got reinforced a bit in this episode. I guess sort of tied into this is I do like that this episode seems to be the first time the audience really sees Win and James like kind of almost realize that she is really capable and she is really smart just as a person in Catco. And I found that very interesting that I think they were trying to reinforce these things a lot in season 1 that she is smart, she is capable. Sure, she's still impulsive and can be a little bit of a hothead, but it doesn't mean she doesn't have a brain.
Exactly. It is part of the arc that Kara has, and something that we have continually said about in this podcast is how capable Kara is in her day job. And
Mhm.
now the center of this episode in particular is the fact that she's spreading herself too thin because she's doing like her job at Catco. She's doing Supergirl job and she's acting as a DEO agent. And that is something that Alex tell her like, calm down, you are doing too much.
Mhm.
Sometimes you have to take a step back. And that is something that she's quote unquote learning throughout the season, to basically delegate and wait a little bit. But the incident with Kat is the fact that Kat is not quote unquote not in this episode because she won a Siegel prize. Siegel, of course, being like
Yeah.
the Easter egg for the creator of Superman. And
Mhm.
she's out of town. Uh, she doesn't have a nanny at the moment because the nanny broke her leg or something. And
Mhm.
then she tries to call her mom to take care of Carter. Kara offers herself up to take care of Carter. And Kat is very proud because she thinks that is like a ploy to have Kat owe her something, or something along those lines.
Yeah, I love that they really do show in this scene like their very opposite ways of operating. Kara's like, "No, of course I'll help you out. Like, whatever." It's like it's not even from an employee perspective. I think she was just offering because she was able to. And Kat takes it as, "Oh, you're being like, ooh, you're being, I don't know what's the word.
Cunning.
Yeah, cunning and da 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 da." And Kara's just like, "Okay." Um, I'm gonna backtrack a bit. There was something in the opening scene I really liked. Once again, I do love that they kind of start with this episode a bit showing these kernels of Kara almost sort of privately being able to enjoy her powers more freely. Because, the show kind of starts with literally she doesn't remember how to really do anything or use any of them. And she stumbles into flying to save, the plane her sister was in. And in some ways, if it wasn't a show, you could almost think, is she going to go back to just giving that all up? Because it almost, on some level, I think, particularly in the pilot, seems like, well, she accomplished what she wanted to accomplish, which was save her sister. But I like that with this episode, I think in the opening in particular, I think they're really starting to lean into the fact that she actually does enjoy it. And she even says, I feel like prior to letting myself, I guess, be free, be out in the open, I felt like a shadow of a person. Like she wasn't her full self. And I think that's something that's very important that sometimes gets overlooked in the show, particularly regarding Kara. And then
Mhm.
I found it kind of amusing that this episode starts with her saying, "Oh, and now I can have it all because I'm not, hiding myself anymore." And then the whole episode is about you're doing too much at once. You need to
Exactly.
chill out. You need to find a balance before you take on more things. Kind of like you need to have a base in place and then build upon it. So I think again, I think the writers did a really good deft job of trying to show she is, kind of growing and becoming more, but at the same time, it's all new and she's still impulsive and she's still sometimes a little bit doing the cart before the horse and she needs to like reassess. But anyway, I really like that about this opening that, she's having some joy and some solace and being able to use her powers more.
Yeah, this is something that they try to bring back at least twice more along the show is the fact that quote unquote Kara cannot have everything. Because this is
Oh,
the lesson of this is the episode that has the cat quote that she basically has like a lesson, even though in season 6 that she says like, and I hate that the person that repeated back to her makes no sense, but Kat tells her in this episode like you can have it all. It is that you cannot have it all right now. You cannot have it all at the same time. You have to work your
mhm.
way up. That is basically something that Kara tries to do, and the frustrating thing is that, in my opinion, she does get there basically every season, but every season she goes back at not being quote unquote able to have it all. It is just so repetitive and makes no sense, but that is a conversation for another day. But
Mhm.
one of the things that we have in this episode is the actual start of the triangle between Lucy and James. Is one of the center points of the episode is the fact that yes, Kara really likes James,
Yeah.
but James is in a complicated situationship with Lucy at the moment. And the thing is that Kara really likes Lucy to the point that she says she should be the one dating Lucy,
The
which
infamous
is
scene.
very
The infamous
stark.
heck, I want to date her. Um
Amazing, amazing. You
Amazing
kind of
delivery, amazing scene.
amazing. It is so funny because it is hinted, especially in the next episode, that Kara is not quite as straight as we are supposed to think. Like there is a lot of hinting, especially in this season, about Kara's like queer identity, I guess.
Oh yeah, I think it's very prevalent in this season, and you can't ignore it. Like it's very blatant, I think.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, and it's kind of in this episode, it's kind of as much as I'm not the biggest fan of like love triangles, it's kind of fun to watch, mostly just because of like Kara's reactions to all of it more than anything else. And like you can tell she really likes James because there is one scene later in the episode where she very clearly does her signature move, which in my mind is she yearns from a distance and then she moves in and does the very sort of bold move of just going to talk to the person she's yearning over. And she does this again later on in the show with somebody else.
hmm
But that's a conversation for another day. But I kind of loved it in this episode. I think mostly because I just loved all of Kara's sort of reactions to all of it more than anything else.
yeah. The thing that, like you said, I also not really a fan of love triangles. They are overused and never quite really well explored. But the
Hmm.
thing that I actually enjoy about this one is the fact that there is actually like no fighting, like no cat
Yeah.
fights between
Yes.
Kara and Lucy. They actually really like each other as people, and
Hmm.
there is no like bad blood between them. At least for right now, and at least not
Hmm.
because of James. They do have conflicts in the future, in future episodes, but it's not related to James as far as I remember. I haven't rewatched the entire season yet,
Yeah,
so
well, yeah, I have to agree. Same, I don't recall it. I think it had more to do with their dynamics at the DEO than anything else, which had nothing to do with James because he's in Catco. So,
exactly.
like again, my memory serving, I agree. I also just I don't know, and they had a conversation here where It at least up front was just two women talking. It
Yes.
wasn't about James initially, and I particularly for the time, it was very refreshing. I
Yes.
think when this was airing, it was very refreshing.
But the conversation that Kara and Lucy have on Noonans,
Mm,
and when Lucy explains the reason as to why James and her broke up, because previously in the episode we are told that from James' perspective that Lucy was the one that broke up with him because of her job. Then Kara like runs into Lucy and Lucy asks her if she thinks that if that James is seeing someone else. And she's like, no, 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 of course not. Obviously, very awkwardly because she has a crush on James.
mm.
But Kara tells us that no, James is not dating anyone, not seeing anyone. And Lucy confessed to Kara that the reason they actually broke up, even though James thinks it's because of her job, it was because she was insecure about Superman because James will basically leave her hanging to go and help Superman. And she was very understanding. She was like, I understand that it was because they were saving people. I'm not saying that it wasn't important, but that hurt me. And after they have this conversation, when Kara returns to Katko, she goes and have a conversation with James, and she has one
Yes.
quintessential speech that is, like you said, it is like planting the seeds of the aspirations that Kara has in a romantic partner.
Yes.
She says that she hasn't had luck with romantic love. She doesn't have a relationship like that. But if she did, she will fight for it. And boy, does she
Hmm.
fight for it. And I'm not
She
talking about
does.
James.
I know you're not. The other thing about this scene I noticed this time, and I think it's I particularly once I finish the episode, is the way Kara reacts to both her conversation with Lucy and her conversation with James. By the time I got to the end of the episode, it really hit me that this episode did a really deft job of showing Kara's bone deep compassion, not just in a Supergirl context, but she does this with Lucy. She does this with James. She does this with Carter. She does this with Kat in this episode. Like, there are so many important points here where they're really solidifying, like, Kara is this deeply compassionate, loving person and that she sees people. And I think that is such a critical aspect of this character going back to the comics. And the fact that this episode does such a good job of laying this groundwork in all of these ways and spreading that around. I think, again, it goes back to what we've been saying about season one, is this is actually, I think, an amazing presentation of this character as a person, that she's not Superman. She is her own hero. And I think this season does an amazing job of actually showing the viewer that and really making you not just see it, but feel it. And I think that also ties back into Melissa makes you believe. Like, just the way that she acts in these scenes in this episode, and I there's just so much going on. I think another thing I'll say real quickly about the sequence in Noonan's, right? Because a couple of people went in and out, even Alex is in the end of that scene. Is this is once again an example of season one has such beautiful camera work, such beautiful connective tissue. They really make every space in this show feel very real and very lived in. And I think I'm noticing it more while we're doing these like podcast rewatch, partially because I think a lot of that goes away later on in the show. That sort of
Yes.
everything feels very real and lived in and tangible. And I love it. I don't know. It's a little thing, but I really love it.
Yeah, what you were saying about how Kara is a good person, she
Mhm.
does things even when it is at her detriment. At this point, when she confirms James about Lucy, she had been told earlier in the episode by Alex, like, you cannot talk about Lucy to James because that is how you get in the friend zone. And you are always the best friend and not the girlfriend because you are trying to be like the shoulder that they lean on. And during the episode, Kara does try to keep like the topic of Lucy to a minimum, just to have that ideal, right? That she likes James, she wants to date James,
Mhm.
until she gets this perspective from Lucy and she cannot hold it anymore. She's like, you have to talk to her
Mhm.
because for the next person it's not going to be fair. Obviously, she's thinking about herself, right? But
You know what?
she
Fair point to her. She should.
exactly, but also like because she is a good person, she wants the best for both of them, for Lucy and for James and for
Mhm.
herself as well. But
Mhm.
she realized that it will not be fair for her if she were in the position to date James, if he still had feelings for Lucy. So
Mhm.
that is why they talk. But during all this, Kara has been quote unquote babysitting Carter, right? We
Mhm.
had the funny scene of Kara completely forgetting about going to pick Carter and then having to fly there, and Kat is calling her. It's a mess. She
The
has a
window is
funny
open.
she has a funny scene with Carter when she's like, I love the school, learning everything about this new planet that I'm totally also from. Carter is a shy guy. It is hinted that he has maybe a bit of autism for the way that Kat talks about him, but then it's more shown like he's just shy.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
he is basically the person, the character that is guiding what happens in the episode. Uh,
Mhm.
because at the end of the episode, because he admires Supergirl so much, he goes and puts himself in danger to by the possibility of just meeting her. Right? He
Mhm.
goes and somehow gets himself into the train, and then Wynn follows him, cannot get to him, but he sees Ethan Knox, who is an ex-employee of Max, that they had established at this point on the episode that he's like disgruntled with him, and he's the one that is behind the bombing. He sees Ethan, he calls Kara. At the same time, the DO had discovered that there was a bomb in the airport. At
Mhm.
this point, Lucy had supposedly broken up with James again, and she was leaving
Yes.
National City. So she was at the airport. Kara was flying towards the airport because they had seen the bomb. Gets the call from Gwen that Carter is at the train, and the that Ethan Knox is also there with a bomb. And she's like, I cannot be at both places at the same time. The DO asks, what do you want to do? She decides she's going back to the train. The DO then sends agents to the airport to deal with the bomb there. Then, you know, Kara gets in. She talks with Ethan. That is when she realized that there is something wrong about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, she tries to convince him that he doesn't need to like blow himself up for
Mhm.
this. But he's very nervous. He doesn't seem like erratic or anything like that. He just, like Kara said, he just seems sad. The DEO went to the airport. They find the bomb. They try to disarm it, but there is no time.
Mhm.
So Hank tells Alex to leave, and she basically have to get everyone else out. She gets herself out. The DEO is like the DEO agents are worried that Hank is not coming back, and suddenly he comes back. Obviously, we as the audience we see that it's actually John because he does
Mhm.
some Martian thing and disables the bomb. But for
Mhm.
Alex, it's suspicious, right? That because she saw
Yes.
the bomb, she saw that there was something else. So when they both save the day, Alex is disassembling the bomb, and she realized that because Hank told her that it was a dot, that it was like it was just a distraction. But she's disarming it and she's saying that it's actually like a real bomb and it has like a fail safe uh, circuitry and everything. And she's like, this is weird. And Kara is like, this is not the only thing that is weird. This guy wasn't like erratic or wasn't violent. He was just sad. So there is something that is not adding up.
I
But
I will say, sorry, before we move
go
on.
ahead.
I do love in this scene with the dud bomb in air quotes there
Hmm.
that Alex asks for some tool and Kara just walks by and opens it like it's a soda can. And I love
Yes.
little casual things like that always with powers. Um there was something else about the train sequence. I think it's another really good example of, well, the set for the train is beautiful. Like the actual set they did for the train's beautiful. And they did another like beautiful piece of wire work of her coming down into the train. So again, these are little things, but for me, these are little, all of these little things where they put in effort because they care, I think is a really strong reason why for me this season really holds up. It's all these little things you don't realize you miss them until you go back and you watch these episodes and you're like, "Oh yeah, they stopped doing all these little things." Also, Supergirl did speak to Carter on the train. So
She
he
did.
got to meet Supergirl.
Yeah, yeah. But also in this episode, this is when they start building that weird relationship between Max and Alex.
Oh, yeah. Well,
It is so
mm,
weird.
mm.
It never gets like, it is outstanding how weird it is, especially in hindsight, right? But
Yeah.
I think this actually, like, the rest of the show made these scenes make more sense. Like the fact that Alex is a lesbian makes these scenes make more sense.
Yeah, yeah. I think the funniest thing for me in the sequence with Alex and Lord in his office was it was called Super Train. I that's what I was focused. I was like, I love that that's the name of the train. I was like, great, great. Um, I guess we're kind of bouncing around people, but you speaking about Hank using his Martian powers is there was also a hint in a scene earlier when because there was another bomb thing in Lord's like offices and Carr took care of it and then she kind of gets knocked out. She wakes up and she's disoriented, clearly still recovering, but we as the audience see like Jean's red eyes and she's just kind of like, "What? Am I hallucinating?" So I like that the show is starting to hint that there's something else going on
Yeah,
there with
yeah.
Hank.
For the audience, it's not the first time that we have seen like the red eyes, because at this point we I don't think we know that is John, that is
No.
Martian Manhunter.
No, we don't.
From the perspective of the audience, we just know that there is something there, that it is
Mhm.
not actually Hank. That is the only information that we had at the time. But I was going to mention actually that this is the first time that we see like the solar beds, the solar lamps,
Yes. Yes.
that we have them along the rest of the show, but this is the first time, and obviously we don't see these particular lamps anywhere else past season 1. But it is the
Mhm.
first time that is they are mentioned and they are used in the show. But one of the things that the scenes between Alex and Max were establishing is the fact that Max doesn't trust the government,
Mhm.
and that is basically one of the reasons why he doesn't really trust Supergirl either, because he has like figured out that she's working with the government, and that is basically why he doesn't really trust either of them. He's flirting with Alex about wasting her brain in the government and whatever. It is because the government didn't quite follow through with a report that his parent has had said about the filtration of one experiment that they were doing, and they died because the government didn't follow through.
They do a good job of establishing him, I think, in this episode as an antagonist. Like he's not a totally bad person, but he is clearly an antagonist.
Yeah, like I said when we did the review of the entire show, this was one of the characters that didn't quite work for me, and maybe it didn't quite work because we got actually the real deal. By the end of the show, we got a Lex, and we have hinted that Max is very much a Lex insert that they didn't have access at the time. So we got
Yeah.
Lex,
Yeah.
the thing is that Lex is clearly a villain. Uh, Max was like skirting that line into being
Yep.
like, that is why I always say that he's like, Lena as a character is very much like the amalgamation of several characters. Like he has more of the Lena aspect of doing wrong things for the right reason. It's just that with Lena it makes so much more sense than with Max. So
Yeah, I will say for me watching this live, and I think I have brought up in previous episodes, I am a superhero fan, comic book fan. love Superman, all that. So it's like I know a lot of the lore. But I think when I was watching this live, I Max worked for me when I was watching it live. I think in retrospect, I can see at least getting Lena later, I think worked a lot better.
Mhm.
But at the time watching it live, I thought it worked well. I just think because so many other aspects of the season were quite strong. But yeah, I think it worked when I watched it live.
Yeah, for me, I was indifferent with Max when I was watching like live. I
Yeah.
was just like not invested in him as a
Oh,
character. He was
valid.
just there. He was
Yeah.
just there for me. And I will say I didn't like the romance aspect either. But we will talk a little bit more when we actually get to that.
Mm-hmm.
Along the episode, obviously, we had the Carter situation, and the reason is that he has like a little cute crush on Supergirl, and that is basically why he does what he does. But one of the things is that obviously that is Kara's boss son, right? So
Yeah.
the entire episode has been Kara like running around doing superhero things and basically not paying attention to Carter, something that she volunteered herself to do. She basically volunteers herself to take care of Carter and then drops him into Gwyn's lab. Gwyn is basically the one that takes care of the kid. And it is not something like I don't care for Gwyn, honestly. But he had a few funny scenes with Carter and with
I thought they
Kara.
were lovely. Yeah.
Yeah, he has a scene with Carter that he tells Carter that he knows Supergirl, and Carter is like, "No, you don't," and Kara's like, "No, you don't." She's very forceful, like, "You don't know Supergirl," and obviously Win has to backtrack and says that he actually doesn't know her. Basically, when Kat returns, Carter asks if Kara can see him again, like take care of him, babysit again, and Kat is like, you better hold to those memories. So never happening again. Carter doesn't really come back in the show. So
Yeah, you know what I loved about that scene though,
mhm,
besides just the image of I always forget because Callista's always in heels, like how
yes,
much taller Melissa is than her. So you can kind of see it in the shot, but I love that Carter's excited because he says Kara plays Settlers of Catan almost as good as you. So then we get
yes,
the lore that Cat Grant plays board games. Like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
what a drop. What a drop. And then she looks at Kara like, "Oh, you know how to play that game well?" Like, it's fantastic.
No, yeah. We always get those hints that Kat is not as superficial as we think she is.
Yeah.
This version of the character, right? She is very
Mhm.
like a very capable woman.
Mhm.
It is just that she, and that is it is an interesting like caster study on Kat that maybe we will do a bit in the future, but it's basically that she's very capable, but she's constantly underestimated, and that is like the quote unquote feminist hint that the show has, especially in this first season, that
Mhm.
you know Kat and Supergirl are always underestimated just by the fact that they're women.
Yeah.
Um,
Max does it at the end of this episode with Kara, is he
yes,
thinks he has it all figured out now, and he's like, "Oh, whatever. I got you figured out. I got you pinned. Whatever. You're never gonna outdo me." And I think the rest of the season proves him wrong, honestly.
I mean, yeah, again, Max is irrelevant past season one. We don't even mention him after season one.
So I think one more thing I'll add about this episode is I think it really struck me how you can feel, I guess, tying into something I said earlier, you can feel Kara almost getting more comfortable, more confident in various aspects of her life. I mean, she still has the frazzled sort of things that happen because that's Kara and her impulsiveness, but I think I love that you can almost feel that that the character is starting to wear the mantle of the cape very well in this episode. I mean, this is after the follow-up with this is like kind of that follow-up to Reactron, right? And I think you can really feel it as in that sequence in the train. You can feel that really, really feel the depth of her trying to get through to Ethan. And I think their exchange is really meaningful, even though it is quite sad. And I think I just walked away from that scene going, you know, This is Supergirl. She's wearing that mantle. Like it's there. It's her now. And I don't know. That just really struck me.
Yeah, totally. Makes sense. But that leads us to Livewire episode 5. The episode basically starts with Alex and Kara waiting for Eliza that is coming to National City for Thanksgiving.
Mhm.
Well, Alex is actually waiting for her in Kara's apartment. Kara's in the DEO fighting a lady, which is a
I
very
love
funny
this fight
scene.
scene.
It's very funny because you can see one that Kara is very strong. It's played by a guy. It is presented as a guy, as an alien, until Hank reveals that is a lady. But this lady alien is very mad, very angry that she's
Hmm.
been detained. But then in this very short scene, you can see like Kara has gotten better at her fight skills
Hmm.
and how smart she is at actually like besting this alien in close combat.
Hmm.
But yeah, they are both waiting for Eliza to arrive. And Alex is very nervous about Eliza being mad at her because Kara is Supergirl. Like,
Yes.
but then the linchpin of the episode is Leslie, who is like a radio broadcast host person, and she has like a very popular show. And because it is the Thanksgiving episode, even within the logic of the show, they're celebrating Thanksgiving. Leslie is giving like this speech about one thing she's not thankful for, and she's basically talking about Supergirl. But what
Mhm.
I like about that scene it is actually the camera work on how
Yes.
they go following like whatever thing Leslie is saying. This they are showing someone who has like an opinion or stakes or it is important to them. This is the scene of the famous Butch
Butch S plate.
Butch X plate in the middle of her chest. And they have like a shot of Kara reacting to that, and then when Leslie is like, "Who's macho and hombre enough to be like the person that is interested in it?" And they have like a shot of James having a reaction, and then you have like Leslie complaining about the Supergirl suit and Win having a reaction because he was the one that made the suit, right? But it is a funny scene. It is very, I love, again, hints about Kara being queer because they are like, or does she need like a sapphic touch? And they have like
Hmm.
a, again, along this season, there are a lot of hints about Kara not being straight.
Hmm. Hmm. It was I don't know, also just shout out to the actress's delivery on this entire
Yes.
thing because it really does hinge on her delivering these lines perfectly. And just when she says, well, perhaps a softer touch is needed to, I think it was to puncture the chastity belt of Supergirl or something. And she does give off a bit of a sapphic vibe. And I was just like, the fact that that was said
Yes.
in an episode of this show in the year 2015 just felt like wow at the time. Just the fact that the
Yeah.
word sapphic was used, I remember being really struck by that. I was like, wow,
Yeah. At
all
the time,
right.
it wasn't like, it wasn't something that you said out loud.
Yeah, yeah.
But then, because of this broadcast, Kat calls Leslie in and basically says, like, Supergirl is not your purview. You have no right to go after Supergirl. And Leslie gets very. It is implied that. It is not implied. This is said in the episode that Kat was the one that discovered Leslie, like
Mhm.
in a very dingy radio station. And basically, she made her, right? And there is a
Kinda like
hint
how
of.
she made Supergirl. Yeah.
Exactly. There is like a hint of jealousy between
Mhm.
Leslie and Supergirl. And again, maybe that is the way Leslie sees Supergirl as her nemesis. I still quite unsure about why Kara sees her as so dangerous in following like seasons.
Yeah.
Uh but it is implied that one of the reasons why Leslie is so like gun ho about Supergirl is because she's a bit jealous of the attention that cats give her.
Mhm.
Um, but in this back to back, Kat puts Leslie in like traffic reporting in a helicopter. And that is when she gets her powers because there is a storm and the lightning strikes the helicopter and it is an accident, and then Supergirl goes to save her, but then a lightning strikes Supergirl while she's like handling Leslie, and that's how she gets her powers. She
Mhm.
gets in a coma. Kat is very worried, but because it's Kat, she's like pretending to be nonchalant about the entire situation, even though she's very
Yeah.
worried about Leslie.
Yes. I think about the rescue sequence. I think watching it this time, it struck me that it really echoes Kara saving the plane in the pilot episode.
Yes,
It's another sort of flying vehicle vessel, and I love how they actually really utilized like the fact that it was Alex and Kara on the street and they see it happen up in the sky. And
yes,
then Alex tries to get everyone away so Kara can go change and help. I think they did some sort of bold stuff here in the sense of like the pilot fell out of the helicopter. So
yes,
Kara like saves him first, gets him to the ground, and she has to go back up into the air. Just the fact that they were doing these sort of like I'm thinking, I guess, from a production standpoint, that they made it like complicated, but it's kind of nice to see them adding this sort of complexity to some of her saves. It's not all as straightforward. They're trying to change things up a little, which is nice. Again, playing with the powers, playing with what you can do on screen. And I just think it was a really, really good, I guess, rescue sequence and
yeah,
leading up to, Leslie becoming Livewire.
yeah. I don't know if it was implied as a parallel of if I'm just reading too much, but supers and helicopters are a thing. It
Mm-hmm.
is very similar
Mm-hmm.
to the rescue of Superman of Lois in the 1978 Superman movie, just by the fact that Lois and Livewire or Leslie are in journalism, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Journalism adjacent in the case of Leslie.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, it is a very fun stunt, I guess, or
Yeah.
wire
Like,
work.
mm-hmm.
Camera as well, like it
Yeah.
is, you feel very very much in the helicopter when the lightning storm is happening.
Mm-hmm.
But Alex was also with Kara in that moment because again she was freaking panicking about Eliza being upset with her about Kara and her Supergirl shenanigans. And to be fair, she is right.
Yeah.
And this is one of the reasons why I kinda always defend Alex in some decisions that she takes, because I am also an older sibling that was blamed for everything that my younger sibling did. So it is a very real situation about being blamed for stuff you have no control over by
Yeah,
parents.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. I have siblings as well, so I really did sympathize with this. But at the same time, I do really love that this episode shows that Kara is very aware that this is not okay. And it does need to be addressed. And she basically tells Alex, you need to talk to her. You need to tell her.
It
Like,
is an interesting point from Kara's POV because from the start of the episode, she's very like, I think you're exaggerating Eliza's reaction,
mm,
right? And that is the start of the episode. That she thinks that Alex is like taking it too seriously, that
mhm,
she's nothing to worry about. But it's because exactly because of the different ways that Eliza treats Kara and
mhm.
the way that she treats Alex.
Yeah.
That is something that Kara learns in the episode, that at least that she pays attention. It is implied that yes, but she never really quite put her mind into it. She just accepted
Mhm,
it. But in this episode, she says to Alice that she has to tell Eliza. But then when
mhm.
she realized, like in the middle of the episode, in the Thanksgiving dinner, that Eliza is actually like putting all this pressure on Alex, she does call Eliza out and tells her like,
Yes.
you have no right to put her through that. Like she has done everything in her power to take care of me. You cannot judge her for that. Please figure it out. But one of the
Yeah.
things that I wanted to mention is that it is interesting that at least in this season, or at least this part of the season, Kara is still doing that very strict, like calling Eliza her foster mom or like her
Yes.
mom. That is not something that carries the rest of the show, as far as I remember. She simply calls her mom or Eliza.
Eliza, yeah. Well,
Uh,
and I think part of the reason it is big in this episode, I suspected, at least watching it this time,
mhm.
is well, A, I think it's important not to forget Kara's backstory, which I think the show
Yes,
does kind of forget later on, that she did lose everything. And I don't just mean I think people use planet as a shorthand, but she didn't just lose her literal planet home. She lost her family, she lost her friends, she lost her culture, she
mhm.
lost everything she knew, and literally got flung across the universe after being trapped in the phantom zone for 24 years. So, I think this was them trying to re-emphasize, Kara is a refugee. She is not from this planet. She lost a lot. But I think in this particular episode, I think it was also there for Kat to finally learn something personal about
Yes,
Kara. And I think the way to do that was her saying my foster mom. But I found it interesting she said my foster mom, but she said sister. She never said foster sister. She said
exactly,
sister.
exactly.
And I do find that interesting, but and that's something that I think it really does look like it shocked Kat, the this sort of information. Of course she deflects and it's like, "Oh, well, that's mildly intriguing," but I think she was actually shocked.
And I think actually it has to do with the fact that it happened around her relationship with Leslie, because I do
Yes.
think that it influences the way that she treats her employees and the people that is important to her. The thing about Kat is that she deflects a lot, in the sense that she doesn't want people to know that she cares, and that
Yeah.
is why she is so brash and so harsh on people. And she has this situation of being like aloof and rude. I don't remember which friend of ours said that it felt very much like that old boomer generation aspect of because they suffer whatever, being underestimated. They think that the only way for other people to be as successful as they are is to go to the same hardships as they did.
Yeah, like I had to pick up myself by my bootstraps. You have to do the exact same thing to get my respect or anyone's respect. And yeah, I
Exactly.
think it is a bit of that generation difference there, yeah.
Yeah, and again, nothing against Kat. Like, she is, like we were saying in the previous episode, she is a self-made woman, and she was underestimated, absolutely. But also, she doesn't really make it easy for people to like her, and
Yeah.
maybe that is by design. But also, like, it is a very lonely road, like we said, and that
And
is,
she's very prickly, and it can be a little lonely when you're prickly.
yes, exactly. But the reason that she's so interested in Kara in that moment, maybe it is the situation with Leslie, what happened with Leslie, and her relationship with Carter that we said in the previous episode, that is basically the most important person in her life.
Mhm.
Um, but yes, in this moment that Kara does that revelation came after Leslie woke up from her coma and discovered that she had like electric powers.
Mhm.
And she gets out of the hospital, no problem. But I
Mhm.
wanted to mention that the scene that she comes out of the hospital, there is a guy that is implied that he is basically going to assault her, and the only reason that he doesn't is basically because she has power and she could defend herself. But this time, while I was watching it, it reminded me of the scene on the 1994 Supergirl film. That scene when Kara lands on Earth and there is two trucker drivers that are basically going to do the same things. Like,
Yeah,
they
yeah,
basically going to assault her, and the only reason that they don't is because she has superpowers and she could
yeah,
defend herself. So
yeah.
this time it hit me like, oh, this is a very much a parallel. And the only reason that
Mhm.
you didn't clock her in the immediately is because it's not Supergirl.
Yeah, and the whole idea that women have to have that physical power
Yes,
for defense is it's a lot, but,
it is a good callback or parallel,
Mhm.
I guess, if you had seen the movie
Yeah,
previously.
yeah. I do think this season did a good job of incorporating a lot of things like that, but, not making it, I guess, extremely blatant for the most part, which
Yes.
is a very hard line to toe, I think.
Especially when you do have, like, for example, like the casting of Helen Slater as Eliza when she was the one playing
Mm,
Supergirl in that 80s movies. And maybe that is the
yes.
reason why I clocked her this time. It's
Yeah.
because I was paying attention to the fact that Eliza was there. Helen was playing Eliza. So
Yes.
maybe this is the reason why this time it just jumped at me when I always like never quite pay much attention to that scene.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Can I jump in here? It's a total non sequitur, but I have to mention the chocolate pecan pie moment.
Yes.
Like, my God, this it's like the most Kara scene when she's just like, and I've been to 12 planets and it's the best dessert ever. It's just it's Kara. Like, of course she's gonna talk that way about food. It just delightful moment, delightful scene. At least that was just great. Also, I have to say, some of these earlier moments and scenes with Alex and Car in the earlier ones, like Kyler's face is great. There are some moments where I swear she was trying to hold back laughing. Uh,
I mean,
so
I have always said that Tyler and Melissa are very good at comedic moments.
yes, yeah, their rapport is absolutely
Yeah,
fabulous.
yeah, you absolutely believe that they are sisters. And in the
Mm-hmm.
previous episode, there was a very funny line. It shouldn't be as funny as it is, but
Mm-hmm.
it is in the scene when Alex is telling Kara to please not talk about Lucy with James. She tells her, like, yeah, you always try to be a friend, and that is why you are always in the friend zone. You have spent more time in the friend zone than you have spent time in the phantom zone, which is a burn for Kara
Mm-hmm.
because that is 24 years in the Phantom Zone.
Mm-hmm.
But that tells you something about Kara, that she's always trying to be the friend and not the
Mm-hmm.
girlfriend.
Compassion, man, compassion.
Absolutely. But you absolutely believe that these two are siblings.
Oh,
They have that.
absolutely.
But it goes back to what you were saying earlier about the differentiation between how Kara refers to Alex and how she refers to Eliza. Like
Yes.
she always does this, at least in this season, she always makes that difference between Eliza being just her foster mom or her adoptive mom. But she says that Alex is her sister, and I think it has to do with replacement because
Mhm.
she thinks that if she accepts Eliza as her mom, she's replacing Allura, right?
Mhm.
Especially in this season because she doesn't have the knowledge that she end up having in future seasons. When I said earlier that she does call Eliza mom or just Eliza, but she doesn't make that differentiation like foster mom or adoptive mom. But with
Well,
Alex, she doesn't really have had a sibling on Krypton. So it's easier for her to say like, oh, this is my sister.
yeah, yeah, and to me in this season, Kara making that differentiation, I think, is also an indication of there's still a lot of pain and trauma there, and it
Hmm.
hasn't been addressed. And so I think it makes a lot of sense at this point in the show in particular. I think it makes sense because we're at the start. And I guess since we're talking about Danvers sisters, I love that we got a flashback sequence with them in this episode. Like this is
Yes.
another episode. There's a lot going on in it. There's a lot. There's these episodes are very, I think, well paced, but also they're full of a lot. And I just love that flashback sequence of them flying again because I think it also shows that Kara always wanted to have fun with this stuff and do it, and also showing her impulsiveness because she's the one who wants to
Yes.
go out, and Alex is the one who once again is
Yes.
being like the responsible sibling, being like, no, we were told we shouldn't. Picard's like, no, let's go do this. But then once they do it, Alex has so much fun, like the delight that they both have, like having this like joyous little flying adventure. I think these little things are like very important for like Danvers sister like connection.
Yeah, and that is one of the things that we lose in following season. Like we don't have flashbacks unless it's a flashback episode. That
Yeah.
we do have a couple in season 3 and in season 6 in particular.
Mhm.
We go back and have flashbacks. But yeah, it is a very quote unquote background work
Mhm.
because it does establish like why Cara and Alex have this relationship, why Alex is so fearful of Eliza like blaming whatever happens with Cara onto her. And then we have the importance of Hank and Didio and
Mhm.
Jeremiah. This is the first episode that we have like Eliza and Jeremiah in the actual episodes. Like in the pilot, I
Mhm.
think we had like a couple scenes, but it was very minimal. this is the first episode that we do have like more scenes with Jeremiah and Eliza, and it's actually the first episode that we have Eliza with Alex and Kara as adults.
Yes.
Um, so it is a very interesting family dynamic, but we have the information then that Didio took Jeremiah away, and that he offered himself for Didio to take him instead of taking Kara, right?
Mhm.
Because they wanted
Like his
custodic
tribute.
Kara.
He's like he basically offered
Yes,
himself as tribute in her place.
yes.
Um,
So, but it was very interesting to see that this is when you see actually like the difference between the Hank, the actual Hank,
mhm.
and the Hank that we have known like up to this episode. Because like we said
Yes.
earlier, this we have no information that this is actually John. For our perspective, this is Hank. It just feels very, very different to the Hank that we
Mhm.
know.
It does. It does.
But at this point in the episode, actually, Eliza doesn't know that Alex works for the DEO. That is one of the secrets that they have in
Mhm.
this episode. But along the episode, at the midway point, I think, towards the end, maybe she reveals that she's actually working for the DEO, and Eliza is a bit like taken aback because for her, from her perspective, this agency is just like a obscure organization that took her husband away that from her mind basically are responsible for his death. But Alex doesn't know. Kara doesn't know.
Mhm.
At
Mhm.
the end of the episode, then she reveals that it was actually Hank. And
Yes.
then we get like this suspicious from Alex and Kara because he never told them anything, especially to Alex. And it is implied onto this very episode that Alex and Hank are very, very close.
Yes.
Alex is basically Hank's second in command, and they start like being suspicious of him.
Yes. And it's a big through line, I think, for this season, this particular plot line with who Hank is and Jean and tying that all together. And I think this season did a good job of that. I will say, and the whole DEO thing got revealed in Thanksgiving meal after Kara has a phone call from James. Ooh.
Mhm.
Even though he's gone away for the weekend with Lucy, he still calls
Yes.
her. And then we come back and basically Alex is revealing the DEO thing. And I love the little again, once again, a great sibling family moment where Eliza or Alex are starting to go at it, which feels like something that probably happened a lot
Mhm.
during their years when Kara was there. And poor Win is just here because he had nowhere to go. So Kara's like, just join us
Mhm.
and for Thanksgiving. And this becomes something that builds in the show and the other Thanksgiving episodes. More and more people join, the Thanksgiving
The
table.
Thanksgiving table, yes.
Um, poor Kara that they Alex and Eliza are starting to go at it and Kara just does the thing. I think anyone who has siblings knows this feeling. She was like, "Oh no, she said Alexandra. This is not good."
Yes.
And mumbles that to Win. I cackled so hard. I was like that was a perfect line.
And you know it's serious when someone calls her Alexandra because it never happens again until someone
Yes.
is mad, I guess. And I
Yes.
don't think it ever happens past season one. But yes, Win is there because he confessed
Mhm.
earlier to Kara that he was going to spend his day alone. And Kara, being Kara, invited him over. The entire Eliza and Alex fight broke up when Win was about to say what he was thankful for, which at the end of the episode he says he's thankful for Kara,
Right.
but he doesn't really get a
Oh
chance there
god.
because in that moment James calls Kara, and of course Kara picks up, which is exactly what we were talking in the previous episode of the podcast when I said that for Kara, Win was never an option. She only had eyes for James. Like, sorry for this guy, but he had no chance. But yes, this episode it still maintains the awkward triangle slash square because
Yeah.
it is, to be fair with James, I don't think in this episode he was given Kara any mixed signals. I think he is just a good guy, and because Kara was telling him at the start of the episode that she was actually worried about Eliza and Ale clashing between
Mhm.
them. She was worried about family reunion, not necessarily cause of Supergirl, and he was simply calling us a friend. I don't think
Mhm.
from his part in this episode was hinted that it was anything romantic. But
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
Kara does have a crush on him,
Mhm. Well,
so
she says didn't
obviously,
she say she's thankful for him on the phone, and then he said happy Thanksgiving or something like that
yes,
to keep it more like we're friends. I
yes.
think he was trying to maintain that line, which I respect.
For me, it's not necessarily that he was, at least at this point. We will see when we get to the later episodes in this season, but in this point, I don't think he was like trying to mislead Kara or trying to
Yeah.
mislead Lucy. It was
Yeah.
just like a right person, wrong time kind of thing.
Mhm. Mhm.
So for me, the triangle doesn't really work in the sense that I don't like love triangles. Not necessarily because I dislike any of the people in it. When we at Win, I do have opinions about Win. It is just,
Well, yeah, because I think like you had mentioned the final moment when Win finally tells Kara, "I'm thankful for you,"
yes,
and then he gives her a very, very soft like kiss on the cheek and very quick. So it's very, he doesn't linger, but just the look on Kara's face is just like, I am not romantically interested in you. And you can
and
see how bad she feels because
yes,
I do genuinely think she cares about him. Like they are friends and she cares about him in that platonic sense and she wants to maintain that relationship. But
yeah.
she's just like, I'm not interested in you romantically, was the
And
look
that's
on
the
her
thing,
face.
right? And that is the thing what I don't like about Gwen. But we will get in. I think
We'll get
it's
there.
the
We'll get there.
next or two episodes. I think
I
they
think
they
so,
do
yeah.
have the like the build up of this plot line that they have been hinting since the pilot. Then you have like the fight between Supergirl and Livewire, and it
Right,
is
yes.
it is a very well choreographed fight. It has a
Mhm.
lot of special effects. Leslie's powers are basically all special effects.
Yes.
So it is well choreographed. It is a plan from Kat. She is the one that comes up with how to confront Livewire because, to be fair, Livewire is like a revenge path and she wants to revenge on Kat because in her mind she's the reason why she was in the helicopter in the first place. And
Mhm.
it's been established that she doesn't really like Supergirl. So she's
Mhm.
basically in a revenge path with both of them. The DEO had created some gadget to capture her.
It was a reference to Ghostbusters, I think this is the first
Yes,
reference in the show to, like, Ghostbusters. That comes back later on, though.
yes. Kat was trying to distract her, and Supergirl was trying to like draw her in. But to be fair with Leslie, she's very smart and she figured it out. But Kara is also very smart and she figured out you don't mix electricity with water, and that is how she defeats her.
Yes.
Again, excellent fight. The DEO capture Livewire, and they mentioned that she is the first non-alien detainee that they have.
Yeah, indeed. And for this whole sort of long sequence, because we had the various scenes in Catco and Leslie, and then leading up to this final sort of, I guess, team up of Supergirl and Cat to try and,
Yes,
help capture her, is I think one of the little things I loved that was a very much a nerdy reference is Cat for we got Jean in Catco, which I
yes.
was like, "Oh, yeah, I forgot. Yeah, he
Agent
does show up
Mulder.
in Agent Mulder." The reference to X-Files every time
Yes,
gets me when I watch this episode. I love it so much. And then I think I loved when it was like Kat wanted to team up. I just they did I keep focusing on these little things, but I don't know. I find delight in them. There's the little thing where like cars floating outside of Kat's office. I just thought the lighting in that sequence on Kara looked great. The fact that she is floating there. And also they did something different. They added like some fog and cloud just to make it look different. And I
mhm.
just like that they put in effort with these little things. To me, it just shows they really cared. They were trying to not have everything look the same, be exactly the same every time they're doing things.
And that is when budget comes in, right? Like
Yes.
CBS had a lot more budget that broke network television, the CW.
Mhm, mhm.
But yeah,
Absolutely.
this episode was excellent.
It's so much fun.
It is a fun episode. I do like the entire Livewire character is just fun. I
Mhm.
do like I said earlier in the podcast that I would have loved to see more of Eliza actually in the show.
Yes.
We get her every season, but always like a few episodes at a time, maybe. I do like Helen as Eliza. She has this warm that I don't know how to explain because as a character, Eliza is not that warm, at least not with both her children. It
Mhm.
is implied that she's like more maternal with Kara than with Alex. But I do love seeing Eliza. I did like her scenes with Jeremiah,
Yes.
even if
Yes.
I do have opinions about the actor.
Yeah, I think that but I think those flashback sequence with them well, A, they're important, but the
Yes.
importantness aside, I do think they were well done.
Yes.
Like, I think you really feel who these people are and how that household was, particularly before Jeremiah is taken, and I think the show going forward does a really good job of making you feel the loss of Jeremiah in that household,
Yes.
and
Yes.
I think that's another trauma all 3 of them experience, really. Like, I was thinking, like, the guilt they must all feel on some level, like, some of Eliza's, I think, I don't think it's going too far to say she lashes out a little bit over the DEO thing, but I think part of that is I think she probably feels some level of guilt in him being sort of lost to the DEO there and not being able to do more. And I don't know, there's just a lot going on, and I think the scenes were good and they really worked. And I will say I do wish Livewire had been able to come back for an episode every season. Justice for Livewire.
Yes.
Um, like I think she's one of those nemesis in air quotes. They're more like frenemies, I guess.
Yes.
Um, I really wish they had brought her back every single season for at least an episode.
Yeah. We had a good track when we had it, but then when we lost her, she was very missed.
When she says kitty kitty to Cat,
Yes.
and
Yes.
then you're waiting for Kat to react, and Kat has, like, the best comeback. She's like, something like, "Bully for you, you have the wit of a YouTube comment."
Yes. Yes.
Like, Kat has such amazing lines.
Kat has amazing lines, and Callista delivers them flawlessly.
Yes, like, just perfect, no notes.
Apparently, there was also like an Easter egg of some kind to Callista. We had like two other Easter eggs from Callista, like
Oh,
filmography.
right.
You know that James and Lucy go to Ojai, like a
Yes,
very
yeah,
very random place. Apparently, there was a show that Callista was that her character family has a company that it was called Ojai something, and that was the Easter egg.
right.
And the other one that was that apparently in a previous show that she was playing a character named Kitty. So that is why
Oh, that makes
Livewire
sense.
calls her like Kitty Kitty. But obviously,
Yeah.
because her character name is Cat, you can play with that one.
Well, that reminds me of another little Easter egg that I don't think we mentioned in a previous episode. One of the previous episodes we've watched in this podcast series, there is a Easter egg where Kara says, "Don't watch Homeland until I don't start Homeland until I get back."
Yes,
And both Melissa Benoist and David Harewood were in episodes of Homeland. So
yes,
that was also a little Easter egg for actors in the show, which I thought was pretty cool. I will say I do think once again, like this episode, like the previous one, I think had a lot more going on than I remembered. I did really like how sort of creative a lot of these sequences were. Again, they're showing all of the characters, I think, either being creative, having very strong emotional scenes as well, particularly the ones between, I think, Eliza and Alex and sort of that thread. And then you have the thread of like Kara tying into that. And in the end, Eliza finally being like, "You could be doing better than you are." And Kara's like, "Oh, progress." Not the greatest feeling, but this is progress. You know, like they're kind of working on it.
yes,
I did yeah, and I do really love like you said the whole sequences with Leslie and the fights. I just loved how creative they were and how light they were. The fact that they once again, I think they did a great job of showing that Leslie is smart and Kara is smart and they're not afraid
yes,
to do both. And I think that is really important because at this time in particular when this season came out, there weren't like tons of fight scenes between women in terms of like they're
yes,
both like powerful characters with powers and like they're getting to actually fight. I think that can't be overstated, like how cool that was in the time, and I think it is still very cool. The fight scene was great. I think the characters were both shown to be very capable and very smart, and one wasn't put down over the other. And I think that's also really important.
Yeah, I wanted to mention that I was saying earlier in this episode that I didn't see why Kara sees Livewire so much as a nemesis. But as we were talking a little bit about it, I think maybe it is because this is actually her first villain that is hers. Like
Yes.
previously, we had like
Mhm.
Reactor that was Superman's villain.
Mhm.
And before that maybe Astra, but also I don't think at this point she sees the Kryptonians as villains, more than people that it is she feels it's her responsibility
Mhm.
to not let them get their goals. But maybe the reason why she sees Livewire as her nemesis until these future seasons is the fact that this is actually the first antagonistic person that has a grudge against her, against Supergirl. So maybe
Yes.
that is the reason. Maybe.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, but I do also like, I guess, going forward, I guess, with the episodes Livewire comes back in. I think they show progress as well, which is
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
But I think that kind of wraps it up for this episode for us. The next episode is going to be we're gonna do a whole episode exploring episode 6, which is Red Faced.
I do hope you like the episode. Remember to comment and like and all those things. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for listening, everybody. I hope you enjoyed El Mayara.
El Mayara.